Hi, dear listeners. Welcome to ILSA Law and International Law Podcast. I'm Mrs. Safira, your host for today's topic, She Said, He Said, and the Truth About International Law. I'm now accompanied by my partner Haikal and trusted respondent, Mrs. Fatma Mutia, a respected international law lecturer at the University of Tanjung Pura. She will answer us all short of significant questions surrounding international law. All right, without any further ado, let's get us all the facts and get some answers. To Mrs. Fatma and Haikal, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello, my name is Haikal, and today I'm going to ask questions regarding international law to Miss Fatma. Okay, Miss, the first question is, what is the fundamental difference between international law and law in general?
Okay. Haika, thank you for the question. Hello, everyone. Regarding the first question, it depends on what do you mean by law in general, because you asked about the fundamental difference between international law and law in general, right? So if you're referring to law as a set of rules and principles that define and rule a society, as it meant by Kant, by Professor Kusma Aja, and other legal experts, then I should say that there is absolutely no difference, yeah, between international law and law, because international law is law, right? Because it consists of written as well as unwritten norms, because it's accepted by many to rule a society that is international. So international law is law. It is a part maybe of law concentration. It is same as civil law, criminal law, economic law, and etc. Right? But however, if you're referring to law as in set of rules that applied in one nation, which we often refer to as national law, all right, because then there are some fundamental difference between the two. Okay, I will focus on two things. The first one is the source. Yeah, it's just a short explanation because international law is the source of the international law is international custom and treaties, whereas national law, we know we have a set of legislation, right? We have undang-undang, peraturan pemerintah, etc. And then the second one is the subject. National law recognize the traditional sense of subject of law. Okay, we have person or individual, and then we have legal person, right? But the main subject of international law is state and international organization, because international law applied in international crime. Okay, so that is the fundamental difference between international law and national law. And maybe for the final note is that the international law that we discussed here right now is referring to public international law and not private international law. But I don't think I need to elaborate it on that because it will take too much time. So yeah, so I think that's it.
I see. So international law cannot be differentiated with law in general because it is law, and when it's differentiated with a national law system, then the difference is only by the scope and the source of the law itself, right, Miss?
Right, right, that's right.
All right, let's move on to the next question. In a deeper sense, what are the materials and issues that is often discussed in international law?
Okay, so this is another general question. So it depends on who you ask. Okay, so since international law covers a lot of area, yeah, we have maritime, we have trade, we have investment, aviation, human rights, international environment, security, cyber, to name a few. So there are a very wide variety of issues that can be dealt by international law. There's so many variety, and sometimes issues that we thought is very national or even local in nature is in fact have international law element in it. Maybe I will bring a local perspective in this question. So, for example, in at the end of 2019, yeah, I stumbled upon an issue regarding a plan to build nuclear power plant in my region, Universitas Tanjung Pura is located in Pontianak. So in Pontianak, there are a plan to build a nuclear power plant of NPT for sure. And then question emerged regarding the readiness of Indonesia and Pontianak regarding the security and then the safety to maintain very dangerous facilitation. So I did a little research, and then just a little research here will show that there are international treaties that regulate the safety of the use of nuclear, right? The Convention of the Safety of Nuclear, of which the central and the local government even need to be considered and even implemented to ensure the safetyness of the NPT, the planned NPT. And then there is IAEA. I don't know if you ever hear of this. This is the International Atomic Energy Agency, an international organization that one of its duty is assisting countries who have the plan to develop nuclear as power option. So, and then the next, there is an issue regarding how it can conflict it with neighboring country, because we know nuclear power plant is quite dangerous. And West Kalimantan is located next to Malaysia, so it needed to be considered as so. So we have international treaty, we have international organization involved, and then we have a bilateral relation with another country. So a local issue, a Pontianak issue, and then it becomes a national issue. So it is a very wide angle to consider.
I see. So even a small scope such as a city in a country can involve the treaties and regulations that applies to the whole world, right, Miss?
Yeah, and even in Pontianak, because it is a neighboring country with Malaysia, we have a lot of international law aspect issue, especially in the bordering area.
Yeah, and those regulations take place to ensure the safety of the people, right?
Yes, of course.
I see. So those two were more theoretical questions or discussion. Now let's move on to more real world or implementative situation of international law in our society. The next question is, what are the necessary considerations in order to develop and maintain international law?
Okay, this is a very interesting question, and it might be cliche, but in order to ensure that the international law keep developing and then it can be maintained, there is the urgency to make sure that the international society still believe in the international law. I choose the word believe. It is strange, I know, but international law is a challenging field in the sense that there are obvious limitations of its implementation that I think we already know. So in order to ensure that the international law will always developing, so all of the actors that involved in international law, states, international organization, ICJ, and other judicial body, must be confident that the process of making of the law will result that law to be implemented and then in turn be enforced. Because international law, although it is have been developing for thousands of years, until now it still sits on a very shaky ground, because the international legal order works on the basis of multilateralism, where multiple nations, along with their divergent interests, work together toward a common goal and a common value. So it is challenging, and then this advantage of multilateralism is being challenged right now by its contender. I think you may be aware of this issue about the rise of the unilateralism. In a simple term, it is a view adopted by several states, of which they act without regard to the interests of other states. And it showed in many ways, right? Such as, Brexit, the phenomenon where Britain withdraw from EU, European Union, which is a poster child of multilateralism and what ASEAN strive to achieve. And then we know how the Trump administration tendency toward unilateralism. We have trade war against China. They impose sanction against Cuba, and then he withdrew from Paris Agreement. And then we have the growing assertiveness of China and Russia in shaping international society. So this kind of states act withdraw the effort to achieve multilateralism a few years back, and multilateralism is the backbone of international law. So these issues need to be addressed, right? Because we are growing accustomed to this, well, kind of multilateralism way of life, right? It is more democratic, it prioritizes collaboration, sharing, competitiveness. Yeah, so this kind of issue needs to be considered in the effort to develop international.
I see. So since there are no body above countries in international law, so everyone is equal, they rely on a common consensus or belief that they need to play together and work with each other to make sure that the whole system works. And if there are some countries that doesn't want to play with each other, like Brexit or US, then a conflict happen in the international community, right, Miss?
Yes, yes,
And
that's the
that's
problem.
foundation of international law,
Yeah,
right? Because there's no governing authority that controls every country in the world, right? We don't have
yeah,
a world,
well,
right?
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
now,
that's yeah. Okay.
yeah, that actually brings us to the next question, which is there a body that uphold the whole international law? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this, I think this is the continuation of your previous question. Well, one of the issues that surround international law is there is always a lingering assumption that international law cannot be enforced because they do not equip with a standing body of enforcement officers. Right? There are no international police officer, right? So this is a question that often asked in my class even. But I think to answer that question, we have to look at the United Nations Security Council, the UNSC. It is one of the main organs of the United Nations, and it is the closest thing we have to international law enforcement officers, right? Because it is acting under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. And then UNSC possess the responsibility, a huge responsibility to maintain international peace and security. For this, the UNSC is equipped to have the power to impose mandatory sanction. Right? It can be economic, it can be diplomatic, it can even be military. Yeah. So when one state violated international law, they do not put them to jail. Okay, but well, through UNSC we can impose sanction to this state that violated international law. And then um, in regards to more like a court system to enforce international law, we have judicial bodies like International Court of Justice, ICJ, we have Permanent Court of Arbitration, we have International Criminal Court, yeah. And those bodies have the power to conduct trial on violation of international law. But again, then the question is how about the implementation of the award when the state do not accept that award? So yeah, that's the shaky ground that I mentioned about.
I see. And if you realize the UNSC is comprised of nations, big nations from many sides, right? So they're not all in one side of the world. For example, Russia, there's USA, and they're all not very friendly, right? Together.
Yeah. So this is also the question that often raised. Really, the UNSC really works? Does it really work? Well, for that question, I will answer it had its shortcomings. Yes, we know. But I think this is the best system that we could have so far. We have 5 permanent members that reflect the historical political power back from the World War II. And then we have 10 non-permanent members, right? Yeah, 10 non-permanent members that is appointed every, I don't know, I forgot, 2 years or a year, yearly. It is very democratic. Well, it does its job. Does it do a good job in acting as international enforcer? Well, it is up for debate, but this is what we have. So, yeah.
I see. Yeah, so it has a balanced political dynamic, right? So no one has more power than the other.
Yeah. So that's the best that we can come up with. I don't know for 10 and 20 years from now, if we have another system that works better than this. We'll see.
I see. Okay, so far we've been talking about international law, its theory, and its application in the real world. But how about the profession that is attached with international law? So this section will be about the profession itself, and the first question will be, what makes studying international law interesting?
Okay. So, yeah, there are various reasons for different people. So I cannot answer for everyone else. But for me, personally, it is more practical. Yeah, I love the challenge. And especially almost in every university in Indonesia, law student who took international law concentration is the fewest among other concentration. You can look it up. And especially in Pontianak, this is a quite small region. So international law is some kind of a very overarching. It is very out there. How can we apply it in real world? That's the question that most law students ask. Yeah. So yeah, there are fewer law students who took it in my university. So I took it, well, in the hope to have a more lengthy discussion in class, because yeah, there are fewer students and then more time to interact with the lecturer. So that's my reason.
I see. So for those few people who are interested in international law, what are the professions that are related to international law?
Oh yeah, so when we are talking about international profession, I think most people will almost always think about diplomat, right, counselor, and working in foreign affairs ministry. Well, while it is true that most of the knowledge that you will gain in international concentration will help you most if you are a diplomat or work for foreign ministry, there are a lot of private profession that we could choose, and working in international organization, for example. And then if you are a lawyer, you will have an advantages. If you have the knowledge of international law, you can work in other ministry like trade ministry. They need international law or concentration. Even a civil servant in Pontianak will have advantages if he or she have the knowledge regarding international law. So because like I said, even local issue may have international elements to it, and that's where your expertise is needed.
I see. So it's not just bound to foreign ministries and diplomatic affairs, right? And so there's like a lot more possibilities as an international law specialist.
Yeah, sure.
I see. So, which leads us to our last question. How important and why is it necessary for law students to learn international law?
Okay, so this is the question that I often discuss with my student in the beginning of every international law class that I attend. And then I will ask, what is international law? Do you see it around you? Do you feel it working? And then recently, because, well, our situation, I will take up example like pandemic COVID-19, because it is an issue that really close to us. And then I will ask, do you notice international law element in the practice of combating COVID-19? And then they will simply say yes, because they see it everywhere. They will say WHO, World Health Organization. They see it, they see the logo everywhere, they see the recommendation everywhere, and that is right. WHO, as one of the international organization under the UN, will issue many recommendations, protocols, SOP, and many more. soft law that states will implement in the national or even local level. And it touches us as individual. And more importantly, taking into account that most of international treaties that have been ratified by Indonesia will be implemented and adopted into its national regulation. Yeah. So law student really do need to learn international law.
I see. That last part is actually very interesting. The implemented and adopted into its national regulation, because Indonesia is one of the countries that is known to postpone implementing ratified treaties into its national regulations. Am I correct on that, Miss?
Yeah, well, on ratifying international treaties, every state, every country have their reason to accept specific international treaty because they have their own interests, right? They will take up or ratify one specific international treaty when they feel that their interest, their national interest is not threatened by those treaties. So that's why Indonesia will just maybe ratify one treaties but not the other treaties because we have our consideration regarding which international treaties that we would take up as our national regulation.
I see. Wow, thank you for all the detailed answers, Miss. I think that is all for me. Thank you for answering. And I will give the mic back to my partner. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. Yeah. This is very exciting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Miss. Well, thank you very much, Haikal, for your critical questions, and Mrs. Fatma, thank you for your intelligible and evident answers. There are so many questions that we now have the answers to, like how international law have played a very significant role and give so many contributions to solve world's conflict and disputes, and how international law importance are equal as those as any law in the world. Thank you for all the listeners, and we're hoping you all receive the answers you need and broaden your knowledge about international law. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in our next podcast about law and international law. Have a nice day, everyone.